All right, all right, all right. Welcome, 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 everybody. Um, I don't know the words, like, right? We're here today to chat about the pension crisis and what that means for our city. Um, Part of the reason we wanted to have this conversation is because we often see politicians and elected officials and quote unquote community leaders always talking about we need more police, police, blah 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 blah, without any reality of what that means. And one of the connections we wanted to make today is that for each police, people say they want and need, that's services that are being taken off the table. And so we're super excited um, to chat about it and to have this conversation about what future budgets in the city would look like in ways in which like we haven't seen politicians have this open conversation. So super excited. If you're joining us, please share the feed. I'm gonna give us just like a minute or two. I'm gonna play some tunes and then we'll really jump in the conversation. So again, welcome everybody, and we will get started in just a couple minutes. And let's see if I can play some tunes. In the meantime, I'll hum some. All right.
I can hum, Devin, if you need me to. I can hum. Don't mind our silence, everyone. We're just waiting for you guys to come into the room. Come in our space, share the live while we get some tunes. Here they go.
And every time I've tried to be what someone else thought of me, so
Stay with us all. You don't know what's happening, Devin? We're trying to share music, people, for folks who are just coming in. We're trying to share some music, and technology won't let us be great. This is not the first time technology hasn't let us be great, but it's not going to deter us from telling this message today. You can believe that. We're going to talk about this pension report and this pension crisis for sure. You guys are going to get this work. All right, see, I mean, it's being so, it's hating on Devin so bad that Devin can't even hear us right now. So give us just a moment as we move through these technical difficulties. Yep. So in the meantime, I'm gonna check in. Let's do a check-in question, Nate and Sarah, while we wait for Devin to come back and join us. So we were just talking about the weather before we went live. Don't worry, we are gonna talk about the pension report, so stay with us. Today, October 1st, is going to be like 80 some degrees. So Nate, what are the plans for the day and the weekend?
Oh wow. You know, get outside, go for a walk with a friend later, and maybe have some family over and hopefully play some tennis or something with some dope people. So yeah, that's about it.
I mean, that's enough. That sounds good. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, right after this call, actually, I'm gonna be going on a walk, a little picnic in the park with a friend. So very excited. Just a really good way to end a busy week.
Indeed. I am very excited about today because I am going to go meet my niece for the first time, who was born last week, little Callie. So I get to
Oh,
go and meet.
congratulations.
Thank you. TT times two. So I get to go and meet Callie and Renee and spend some time with her and then go pick up my nephew from daycare. I'm going to get there and he's going to say, TT, where's my mom? TT, where's my dad? Just be happy somebody's picking you up, kid. That's what I'm going to tell him. But I know that that's what he's going to say because he's always wondering where his parents when they don't come for him right away. All right, I'm going to check my text and check on my dear friend Devin. And if we have to get started because we have some of this information, we'll get started. What's crazy is he tested this yesterday, y'all. Stay with us, Facebook. All right, Devin is about to join us. We're going to ask him the check-in question, and we're going to jump right back into our regularly scheduled programming. Yes, it looks like I'm in here twice. I'm not. It's really Devin coming in under my login. So give him just 1 second to get himself together. I'm going to give him the check-in question and allow him to take over. Devin, test. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. You know, that's a sign like what we're about to offer is so good they don't want it to get out.
You already know. Devin, before we get started though, while you're away, we had a check-in question. So I want to give you the opportunity to answer the check-in question. I am getting ready to make you host, boom. But the check-in question is, the weather is so nice. We were talking about that. What are your plans for this evening and the weekend?
Yeah, this evening, you know, hanging. I can't wait. I love watching TV, so that's always my jam. This weekend, I'm going to Chicago on Sunday. I think some people know, but I have like a season ticket package, the Chicago Sky Games, and they made the playoffs. And then they're like, "Do you want to do play as you go?" And I didn't think they were going to make a run in the playoffs. I love the Sky, but I'm going to be honest. And so I was like, yeah, thinking it was only going to be one game. And so now I'm like, I'm on the hook for all their home playoff games.
Oops. Enjoy that.
So
Every
yeah,
bit of it.
I'm going with my my parents are going to join me and my sister. So that'll be a lot of fun. Thank you for that. And thanks for holding down the fort.
Absolutely.
You know, let's get into it. So one of the things we wanted to do is, or let me restart. Ever since we launched Liberate MKE in 2019, at every hearing, the mayor kept talking about 2023. We're gonna have like this large pension contribution we're gonna have to pay, blah, 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 blah. We're going to have to pay this pension contribution. It's going to be bad, blah, 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 blah. And every year he would make those remarks and then he would continue to fund the police at an exorbitant level. He did in 2019. I remember talking with Nate and Santerre last year and we were listening to his budget speech. He did it again there. This year, as he might be heading to a place called Luxembourg, he did it again. He keeps saying in 2023, it's gonna get tough. It's getting harder and harder to balance budgets in Milwaukee. And every year he keeps doing the same thing, right? And so one of the things we wanted to do from our end is to not only say like we believe a world without police and prisons is possible. We want to defund the police because we know police don't keep us safe. We also wanted to make the point, we're the logical people in the room. We're the only people looking at this issue holistically and saying we can't afford the police. And so that's why super proud, somebody can drop the link to the brand new report today in the chat to be releasing. Hopefully my screen share works. Can y'all see it? The cover? New report, Milwaukee Police pension impacts in 2023 and beyond. And the police are breaking the bank. And they're leaving us here to deal with the ramification and the impacts. So super excited to release that. And just want to say a couple more things before we move into the conversation. Again, we're the logical people. I use this as an example. I really want a Hummer. Ever since looking back in the 5th grade, I've always wanted a Hummer. A big old Hummer. Right? But I can't afford a Hummer. And if I were to buy a Hummer, that Hummer would serve as my transportation vehicle, but it would also probably serve as my house. I'd be living in that thing. I'd have an air mattress in the back seat. I'd be living in it. So I had to decide what I want to do. Do I want to live a life, a decent life where I have a bed to lay my head? Or do I want to fudge and drive around in my Hummer? I use that metaphor to say we have to make choices. And luckily, I made the right choice. I realized I can get from point A to point B without a Hummer. I could use a cheaper form of transportation. So instead of a Hummer, I have a Jeep. And that's what the city has to realize too. That we can't afford this. The mayor he keeps saying his budgetary decisions over the last couple of years were 180 police officers less. He keeps saying those decisions are fiscal, not philosophical. He's saying he's making the prudent fiscal decisions. I'm here to tell you he isn't. And let me look down at my numbers. So actually at the beginning of this year, the city decided to take $9.7 million from the federal government as part of the COPS program. And they touted it that this is free money. But we know it isn't. And again, I'm not one of those fiscally economic people. I'm not all into it. But what's that line they use in economics? There are no free lunches. There are no free lunches in the sense that yes, while these cops are not on the budget, on our books, on the city's books, and this year or next year, or even the year after, it'll come a day where they are. And even right now in the mayor's proposed budget, he says he's going to pay for 195 new police officers using the American Rescue Act plan. Again, federal funding. I'm here to say a couple of things. I'm here to say that when this bill comes due, and it will in a few years, that is going to be adding $25 or $26 million, between $25 and $26 million to the police department's budget. So when we look at the police department's budget these days, we have to acknowledge that 25 or 26 million more dollars will be added to that budget. And that also will add to the pension problem, another between 1.7 and $2.3 million in pension contributions every year as well. So I'm here to say the mayor and other elected officials have not been making the fiscally responsible decisions, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. They've decided to bankrupt the city in service of the police. I'm going to wrap up my remarks. In the report, we run 4 different scenarios, what we feel are the most likely scenarios that are going to happen. And really, the one that we think is most likely is this one. I'm gonna share my screen again. Is protecting the police department. Why do we think that's most likely to happen? Because that's the reality we've lived under. Can y'all see my screen? No? All right, they really do not want us to get this out today. But we're gonna keep pushing. How about now? Yes. So we see this budget, and we call it protecting police budgets. And in this budget, we see we're only taking 10 million from police and 8 million from fire. But look at the other cuts we'd have to make. It'd be 23% of every other department that would have to be cut. Let's look at public works. That's taking $30.5 million away from public works. That's taking close to $6 million from the library. And I was talking about it earlier. The libraries already have extremely limited hours, really terrible hours. So while the mayor wants to say he was making the fiscally sound decisions, he wasn't. He was banking on that, yes, we're gonna cut service and cut city services in order to continue to fuel a police state. But we're saying, and again, like this isn't like the end all be all, and we're gonna get into it. I think Dr. Ruth Wilson Gilmore says, we want to spend all the money. We don't want to spend less money. We want to spend more money. But we're saying this is the way to go. The only way to go in order to keep the things that we need as residents is to cut MPD's budget. That's the path forward. That's the path forward. Because so many people rely. I was at the library the other day. I love the public library. I'm there often. And I was there and I had to print something out. And literally every computer was full. I had to get special permission to use the children's computer. So imagine Devin sitting in a child's chair trying to print something out. That happened. But I tell that story to say, these are services people use. And these are services a city should be able to provide. And these are services, the exact services that would be cut starting next year because of this pension crisis. And as I wrap up my remarks and we move into a conversation, I just want to again give special shout outs to our friend Jared Knowles from Civil Lytics Consulting, Andrea Ritchie, Wesley Ware, who have all been with us on this journey together. So just shout out to them all.
And Maximize Communications for for helping to design the report.
Yep, as well. So with that, excited to bring in Marquesa, Sarah, and Nate into this conversation to share some of their expertise. I'll start with you, Marquesa. And I talked about it sort of in my opening a little bit, is when we launched the campaign, like the pensions were already on the table, they're already looming, and they're already a subtext of every budget conversation and decision. And he says, by 2023, we'll face challenges to levy supported budgets that put us in an untenable situation. Our employer pension contribution, driven by public safety, really driven by police, we're going to get into that, is currently expected to rise dramatically. Marquesa, that's what the mayor said in 2019. Why hasn't the mayor or the Common Council done more to protect the city against this?
Well, the first thing is, it's clear they don't care. He's going to Luxembourg. I don't think that he just found out he was going to Luxembourg this year. The mayor has has poorly led this city along with the Common Council for years. This didn't just happen overnight. It didn't happen in a vacuum. This has been happening for years and years. And we, just came into the process, the greater community in 2019, Nate, and others opened my eyes to this in like 2017, 2018. And I'm like, what the heck? Are you serious? This pie chart? All of this money going to police? So this is not something that just happened overnight. It didn't just happen a year ago. This has been building up. And that's why the mayor said it. He said he knew it was going to happen, but they do not care. They definitely put police and the state over people. They don't care about the people in Milwaukee. If they did, our communities and our neighborhoods wouldn't look the way that they look. They wouldn't make the irresponsible, fiscally irresponsible decisions that they've made. We can even talk about the COPS grant in January. We know that once the COPS grant expires, all of the cops that they hire based off of the COPS grant, we're going to be stuck paying that bill on top of the pension crisis. Who has money for that? We don't. We don't. The money that we have needs to be going to the places Devin just talked about. People are at the library sitting on top of each other. Devin sitting in the children's chair, trying to use a computer because people need these services. People need computers. They need Wi-Fi. And we are paying these tax dollars and they should pay for it. We should be able to pay for what we want. And we have clearly said since 2019, we don't want this budget. And as Melody McCurdy said, this budget is violent. It's violent. This is violence. And they want to talk about, folks in the city want to talk about, the ongoing violence, in our communities, but you're not talking about this violence. And so we're going to continue to sound the alarms around the violence, this violent budget that they keep on trying to present to us. But we have some scenarios for you today. So I'm looking forward to going deeper into these scenarios. And just hoping that as we move forward in the future, the voices just get louder and louder and our people power just continues to grow enough to shift the power.
Maybe I'm going to go follow-up question. I'm going to post to Nate. Is Nate, I know we often talk about the ways in which elected officials don't do nearly enough. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on why the mayor and the common council hasn't done anything when they saw these, saw this coming as far back as 3 budget cycles ago.
Well, I think y'all keep hitting the nail on the head, but sometimes even, we live in a capitalist state, we live in a carceral state. So sometimes even financial things don't make logical sense when you're trying to maintain order. So the police is eating up the budget and bankrupting the city, but they know ruling class people and the elected officials that facilitate their interests absolutely know that they need police to protect their interests and at the expense of marginalized people in our community. So that's what's happening here. It's even though Barrett is particularly bad as a bad actor, a lot of these people are extremely, our elected officials, operate with these logics. They can't think outside their careerism. They can't think outside of, their next election cycle. So they're going to do, what's going to help their campaign, what's going to help their, their brand or whatever. And that's at the expense of the people. And like Marquesa has said, our communities have to organize themselves in their interests. And we really have to be serious about that. So yeah, that's some of the rationale that you see right now. Whoever the new mayor is or whatever, we're not going to see much of a shift in the logics of how they move or operate. So.
Yeah, thank you, Nate, for making that connection. I think between the carceral state and capitalism, and I really think this scenario we're faced is showing the convergence of those things in weird nuanced ways. And I wish I would love to hear Dr. Ruth Wilson Gilmore chat about this, because I it's on the tip of my fingers, but I can't quite piece all of it together. But Sarah, I want to go to you. And this conversation is rooted in just real financial tough realities that the city is going to face. But we know our conversations about abolition aren't rooted oftentimes in that. Right? Part of it is yes, in this moment, abolition's the only logical things because that's the only thing that makes sense to deal with these financial realities. But we also know, like from our point of view, that this stuff is philosophical. We do believe a world without police and prisons are possible. And so I say all that, like, why is it important beyond the fact that like Milwaukee just simply can't afford more police? Why is it important that we still defund them, even if the economy was like flush and we could afford 1 million of them?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Devin. There's so many reasons that it is important to defund the police. I mean, I wanted to expand a little bit further first on I think what Nate and Marquesa were both saying, which is, I mean, there are so many crises that the police are ill-equipped to handle. And this, you know, like you can talk about it from a financial side, but I'm really thinking of it from just like a basic needs are not being met side, in which, I mean, so, you know, Nate, Devin, and I participated in an event last Tuesday on why we must defund the police. And we had folks, you know, do a breakout into groups on an activity in planning their own city budget based on their and their community's needs. And I mean, overwhelmingly, well, I mean, nobody had police in their budget, and in a second, I'll get to why. But they identified other needs, especially in Black communities and other communities of color that are not at all being met by the city. And just to expand a little bit further, this included things like housing, you know, like understanding evictions are on the rise, especially since the eviction moratorium is set to be lifted, healthcare, you know, which includes mental health care as well. Huge one during the pandemic. Like we have to realize like we are living in a pandemic still. We are still, climate change is rapidly getting worse, you know, and so healthcare is especially inaccessible and discriminatory against, you know, communities of color, poor LGBTQ plus disabled folks, other marginalized communities. And actually like something that was really cool about this event, and I think this is partially, you know, expanding on why police need to be defunded, is that folks were moving beyond established public services. And they were asking questions like, you know, what if we allocated money towards like community organizations already doing the work with no strings attached? Like, what if we allocated money towards reparations? What if we were able to truly thrive instead of merely surviving, if even that? So that's the first reason I think. I mean, it's connected to financial stuff. But I mean, ultimately, you know, like Nate was saying, like Nate and Marquesa were saying, like they do not care. And so no matter how much money they have, like we actually have to reprioritize towards meeting people's needs and realizing that we actually can imagine and create a world where people's needs are met and possibly, you know, even more. And so, I mean, the other reason I think that it's important to defund the police is because it's not just the police have a very specific job and they aren't trained in other things. It's because police are fundamentally perpetrators of violence. Like they're not just useless in helping with other crises, they're an actively oppressive force. And so I think this link will be dropped eventually. I recommend the book, The End of Policing by Alex Vital, for a breakdown on just how destructive the police are to areas like education, the criminalization of homelessness and sex work, the police's domestic abusers and perpetrators of sexual violence, their role in the war on drugs and other, you know, a ton of other areas where they're destructive. Like if you're looking for facts and data, this book really goes through it. And it's really like through all of these scholars and community members and folks who are talking about this, like it's so obvious that that violence is the everyday work of police. Like the bad apples argument that applies, you know, when cops like murder people is moot because routinely they are inflicting violence on people. Like besides the people who have been killed, you know, like how many people were brutalized and permanently disabled that we haven't heard about? How many people have been stopped and frisked, like been forcefully evicted from their houses, had their homeless camps swept and their belongings thrown in the dump? Like these are routine, and police protect whiteness and property. So, I mean, to really wrap this up, I guess, like the reason that we need to defund police is because this is a step towards abolition. And a world without police is a fundamentally safer world. And I know, Devin, you name dropped Ruth Wilson Gilmore once before, or twice before maybe. I'm going to name drop her again and just share this quote with you where she said, "Abolition is about presence, not absence. It's about building life-affirming institutions." And I think this is what a lot of people kind of get wrong or have a misconception about regarding abolition, where it's not just destruction, it's just as much creation. And abolitionist steps are ones that take funding and legitimacy and therefore power away from the police. And so as we take this funding and legitimacy away, we will be simultaneously building structures of safety and care in our communities that folks have deserved literally forever.
Thank you. Yes, yes to all of that. And you know, one of the things that folks, I think Alex from Action Center on Race and the Economy, they say is police are the muscle of racial capitalism. And I think Nate and Sarah are making those connections, right? We see the ways in which police exist only to keep us in order. You know, Nate, I want to come back to you, and I think like one of the things is police have a special place in our society. You know, they do. From seeing them in glamorized movies, TV shows. How many police TV shows, or what do they call them, like legal procedural shows, do I watch? You know, but that's probably true for so many folks. You know, they have these glamorized positions like through TV and movies, or what a lot of folks call propaganda. But we also see that specialized treatment come in a very legal sense. And we saw that here in Wisconsin with like Act 10. Nate, first, like, why is that? And I asked Nate because Nate has been like a union organizer for years.
All right. Well, you know, just thinking about, I don't know, propaganda and how things work. Propaganda is what we've kind of like all subjected to, myself, you know, who studies or whatever. And, you know, we watch our favorite movies, TV, and, you know, things that hit us in our heart from our childhood. And we think about like, you know, Bad Boys or like Beverly Hills Cops or something that we all grew up with like legitimizing like how police move, and like, you know, like Sarah was saying, the bad apples idea of like rogue cops and different situations, that's kind of ingrained in us, and that helps support, you know, the ideas, the undergirth of like, you know, oh, we need cops, or, you know, they're here to do good things. But thinking specifically about Act 10, a very, you know, smart from the ruling class idea was to keep cops and fire away from essentially them gutting public sector unions and their ability to collective bargain, or to, you know, essentially do the things that they need to keep themselves sustainable. But now you built this monster that we're talking about right now, that's probably, like Marques said, you know, we're not the only city dealing with this situation in terms of the economic side of paying pensions out and things like that. But it also created their unions to be monsters, as well as like lobbying institutions, and also protecting the terrible apples, or all the bad apples that exist in police uniform, getting people off when they harm people in our communities. So, you know, I think, you know, being a labor organizer, and I've talked to many people that I work with for years, like, you know, there needs to be a real struggle in the labor like movement to kick like police unions out. There is some activity. You know, I got friends and comrades that are doing some work. SEIU's got a Drop the Cops campaign out west, some folks, but the more progressive sectors really need to like zero in and really like make that louder and amplify those kind of activities. Because as we see, like, even, you know, if we look at labor now, right now, you know, in the pandemic, there's been more strikes that have been kind of like suppressed, or union busting and different things like that. Like, if it gets amped up even more, like the police are going to be breaking people's head, like they're going to be doing the violent things to the labor movement. So the labor movement's really got to, you know, do some self-reflection and criticism and move forward in a way that makes sense. That, you know, some people in the labor movement call cops class traitors, which is a correct analysis. And I think, you know, moving forward, that's the most progressive way to observe that police unions are not unions in the same sense of the traditional labor movement. So
Yeah. Thank you, Nate, for that. And just like as Nate said, um, and in the top of the report, we talk about this. Act 10, like Nate said, strict all public sector workers from collective bargaining rights, except the police and fire department. So again, they're separating themselves from other labor. They're saying, actually, we deserve our own special classification and qualification. And because of that, here are the numbers here in Milwaukee. Police and fire, we could even do a bigger breakdown, but police and fire account for 44.3% of the city workers, but they make up 80.8% or they'd get 80.8% of the pension benefits. So again, we're seeing that disproportionality. Again, they've separated themselves from other city employees. And I think it's important to zone in on like that point, is we also have to name very specifically other workers and other public sector workers, jobs will be cut for police and fire. Very simply, straight up. And we've seen that here in Milwaukee. If we look at departments such as the health department, libraries, DPW, we've seen reduction in people in service of police, police continuing to rule the city. Sarah, we were like in space. Oh,
No, I was just gonna say, because I don't know when my garbage gets picked up. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like DPW, I don't know when. I can't seem to keep the schedule because they don't come around as often. I remember as a child, the garbage people came every week faithfully. Now it's like I'm trying to figure out when can I not take garbage out to my garbage can? Like it's ridiculous. So you're absolutely right. We're already seeing it. We're already seeing cuts.
yeah, and I just like, full disclosure, like I've lived in Racine most of my life. And as I moved to Milwaukee, I'm like hearing some of these things. I'm like, and full disclosure too, Racine is like not by any stretch like heaven or the greatest place. But I'm hearing some of these issues and I'm like, I'm like, what? I'm like, can you please? They're like, yeah, my garbage isn't getting picked up. I'm like, what do you mean your garbage isn't getting picked up? They're like, yeah, nobody's coming to pick up my garbage. We have these huge rats. Like, I'm like, what? Like, and so again, we're seeing the ways in which like city services are being cut in service of police. Sarah, we were in space earlier this week, and I think you like raised an interesting point too about cops being class traders. You want to dig in on that question as well?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, cops, like, so I know Nate was talking about how there's like in the unions, there's some push to try to get police unions out of, like, for example, like the AFL-CIO, which is, the largest federation of unions. And I mean, the reason for that is because cops are not part of the working class. They are actually serving capital, and so they are agents of the state. They are like they are carrying out the agenda, of the ruling class, and so therefore, they don't occupy like the same class status as others do. And so really what seems to happen when people become police officers, like no matter their identities, if they're Black, Indigenous people of color, if they're like queer cops, they still occupy that position, and there's a class allegiance that goes along with it. So they are no longer, they cannot be considered part of the community. And speaking for and representing, folks of marginalized communities, like they are carrying out that agenda every single day, as I mentioned, and so we can't see those people unless they quit their jobs and stop being cops. Like we cannot see them as people that we can build any sort of solidarity with.
Yeah, thank you for that. Again, we're gonna head back to the report where we've run 4 different scenarios based on like, and I'll do a quick some explaining, but like based on the scenarios that we think are the most likely to occur. So I'm gonna share my screen again. And the first one is like, these are just the numbers. Like we're living with facts on the ground. Is if we cut the departments proportionally. So if we just cut all the departments equally, we're looking at an 11.5% cut to all the departments. Again, like this highlights what this $78 million number in increased like spending on police pensions will do. That means 11.5% of services that would be provided would just be cut. It'd just be cut and scrapped. And that would like obviously impact public works, which we've already highlighted. It would obviously shorten the hours at the library. It would obviously lessen the reach of the health department and other departments as well. And it would lead to layoffs. The next one, and again, like this highlights the average cost of each police officer. Each year, one officer costs $112,000. Again. The next one is if we did a proportional cut by like pension contribution. So basically we're cutting it by who is benefiting the most from the pension payouts. And again, we would see this would impact the police and fire more significantly than other departments because they have the biggest impact, or they get the most benefits from the pension. And so I think it's important for us to note, like we talk about like, right, police get $300 million every year here in Milwaukee. It's also important to note the ways in which policing, right, as a thing is costing us so much more with pension costs and like all the other things associated with that as well. And again, check out the report, read it, share with a friend or two, share with your grandma, say, Grandma, what do you want? Grandma, who do you want? Another cop at your corner? Do you want your trash picked up? Grandma, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want to be able to go to the library for your book club so you're not buying all those books that cost like $25 a piece? Grandma, what do you want? As well. The next, and again, like we put this one in because this is what we do all the time, protect the police. Protect the police at all costs. We talked about the special standing they have in our society. We talked about the ways in which they're different. We talked about how so often when cities are forced to make cuts, it's never to the police. It's never to the police. It's always to other things. And even if the city did decide to protect the police, they would still experience some form of a cut. Because this is like how severe the problem is. And then the last one, again, I highlighted at the top of the program, is defunding. Again, people like to call us all the names. I think Will Smith said we should they want to change the slogan. He said change it from defund the police to defund the bad police. I'm like, you're goofy. But again, we're showing we are the adults in the room by offering the only logical solution to this problem. That's where we're at. We're the only logical solution. Defunding no longer looks like a pipe dream. It looks like the sensible thing, the only thing to do. But we offer these four scenarios, different scenarios, one where we just cut proportionally, one where we protect the police, one where we use who's benefiting the most from the pension, and then defund. But I want to ask first Marquesa, and then I'll toss it to Nate. What do you think these budgets in Milwaukee will look like in 2023 and beyond?
First of all of the scenarios except for 4 just depressed me. All of them depressed me. And there's some wild things getting ready to happen in the city of Milwaukee. You know, we talked about Mayor Barrett leaving to go to Luxembourg. Goodbye. And then we have the Common Council president who will become the mayor temporarily, possibly. And so the bad thing about this is he's no better. He's no better than the mayor. So I see some of the same budgets that have been created to keep going unless we do what Nate said. Unless we organize And we get out here and demand something different and stand on it. Stand on our demands along with bringing more people. Like Devin said, your grandmother, your auntie, your cousin, the person on the corner. Like, I know the guy behind me, like, I'm going to go talk to him about it. Like, the guy behind me in my alley, like, he's going to be pissed when he finds out that, like, the garbage might not get picked up. Like, and garbage is serious. And we're not just talking garbage. We're also talking, like, you know, snow shoveling. Like, we know the city of Milwaukee. We know what it looks like here in the wintertime. And so and we know what it looked like last winter during the pandemic. So it's going to be worse than that if they don't make the right decision. So it's really based on us, y'all. It's based on all of you all who are watching and the other hundreds of thousands of people in the city of Milwaukee. It is up to us to demand something different and to make it happen. Like, we can't be quiet anymore. We can't tiptoe around it. We have to say that this is the only way that our city is going to survive. Otherwise, there won't be anything left. It'll be a shell of just what Devin said, of a police state, period. We're already there. But if you think that we're there now, just go ahead and just stay in the house, because there won't be any other services except for the police department rolling up and down your street, or at your grocery store, or at the library, or at the schools, all the places where we know that they don't belong. Because just like Sarah said, we know that they don't have any of the tools to provide in any of the places that we would see them in. So I'm really putting the ball back into the court of the people, Devin, to do the work necessary to demand something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. I mean, I can't really say much more than's already been said, but like, yeah, the new potential candidates, most of I honestly see them promoting something worse. You know, because in my opinion, the top two candidates are very pro-police, and, you know, to maintain the status quo. And I think sometimes there's things that happen that are, you know, like we have a lot more harm and crime that's happening in the city. And, you know, people sensationalize that, and it creates narratives in which, you know, also kind of buoy up the need. Or you'll hear even Barrett will say this, and, you know, the other people, leaders in the city council will continue to talk about the need for police, or to stop, you know, reckless driving, or, you know, the uptick in homicide, without stepping back to like even look at root causes of any of these situations. And they just keep thinking that policing will add to that. And while our communities are hurt and traumatized by that, they play off that. And they continue forward with, you know, these narratives that to them legitimize what these budgets look like. But public safety looks like all of even some of the things that we talked about, and some of the things we haven't even imagined yet, right? Like if we're talking about cleaning up our city, or having healthcare, or having snow removal, or things that actually keep us safe, keep us warm, keep us housed. Like, these people are not really thinking about that. Again, you know, I just don't imagine careerist oriented people that operate under capitalist and carceral logics to come up with genuine ideas. So it comes back to Marques, and we have to organize people, and people have to get really invested in their own interests collectively in how we move forward. So yeah, these budgets, if it's left up to these politicians, is not going to look like anything different. It can actually get much worse. So we should be aware of that.
Yeah. You know, one or two more questions as we're gonna begin to move towards a close. One point our digital organizer Jordan raised, and I'm like, I didn't even think about this, is like, could these budget problems lead to privatization of public goods? And how would that, or I said who, how would that hurt residents? Because like, I was like, whoa, like, yeah, like, if you can't afford these things, you're gonna have to start looking for privatization. And I was like looking, and like, honestly, I think even a lot of the ambulance services in Milwaukee are already privatized. And so like, what could like these budget things, how could those potentially lead to privatization, and what would that do for residents? I don't know if anybody wants to jump in on that.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's important to think about how the less money that the government is willing to spend on public goods, the more likely that these goods will be contracted out to, or like taken up by private companies. And I mean, this would hurt residents because first of all, that would mean that residents would have to pay for these privatized goods and services, you know, in addition to the taxes that they're already paying for to fund whatever is in the public domain. And there's a lot of people who would not be able to afford that. I mean, think of like the state of healthcare in this country and the local effects it also has on this very segregated city. It would also mean that these public goods and services would then end up of less quality than the ones in the public domain as well. So not just lack of access, but lack of options and opportunities, always just getting stuck with the worst possible arrangement. I think of education here, how private schools get beautiful campuses, one-on-one time, the newest textbooks, and public schools meanwhile are in leaky buildings with like asbestos, are overcrowded, their textbooks are 15 years out of date. You know, I mean, it's not to say that privatization is like a new issue. It's been a huge issue since the 1980s with the rise of neoliberalism, you know, this huge turn like towards the free market and like privatization being the solution to all of our problems. But what that really has done, like what the impact has been, not just in the US, but globally, and what will continue to happen if goods are privatized is it's just going to keep deepening the divide between the rich and the poor, as well as the interconnected racial divide. And for a city that has declared racism a public health crisis, I will just say, I will end it here, that is a really bad look.
Just to hopefully short piggyback Sarah's point, we've already seen it happen. Like, so for example, connected to school issues, I'm born and raised from Milwaukee. I'm 41 years old. I have a son who's in his early 20s. So I think about the things that I was able to experience that were through the public schools, like recreation programs that were through the county or city parks that were like free and accessible to me that did not exist when my son was growing up. We had to pay for this and that over there, different resources just recreationally that existed years ago and now have been privatized because the city and the county and the state have cut all these funds towards things that, you know, that were actually like instrumental in helping who I am today, right? So it's happening, it's going to deepen as we see these crises where, Capitol wants to keep the police as is, and we're not intervening in this conversation. I think, you're absolutely right. It's a great question about Jordan, and something that we need to think about, because we can't nonprofit or entrepreneurship our way out of social issues, which a lot of people operate on those logics too. That's not going to happen. We can't do that. So anyway.
Yeah. And like, last question I'll pose I'll start with Marquesa, that maybe others can jump in, is like, I highlighted at the top of the program that part of the mayor's budget is to hire 195 new officers, 3 new police classes, that is, using American Rescue Act plan dollars, which are, and is like no new money for cops. We know in the ways in which like police dominate and get the lion's share of every penny the city gets. But one of the things like that does, and reporters asked him, is like, dude, do you think this is a good idea to be hiring 195 new cops using short-term COVID relief money will only be around for the next couple of years? And his response is like, yeah, I agree with you. It's like, knowing this is irresponsible. And I thought that was like the perfect like bookend to his tenure. But like, how does like the mayor's decision to try to hire 195 new cops sum up his tenure as mayor?
You just said it. It is so reckless and so irresponsible. Like, and when the reporter asked him that, he clearly had no shame in saying like he knew that there was no answer. He knew that it would be a problem. Again, it takes us back to this person does not care. This person does not care and is about to go off and live his life wherever he's about to be, while the city suffers under his poor decision-making and his protege that's coming behind him. Okay, yeah, I said it. So the mayor doesn't care. We know that so many of our public officials support police. They support police, and they do what Nate said. that they don't need to do. And it's no one wants to dig deep around the root causes. No one wants to spend time there. Nobody cares about the root causes because they only are worried about profit, not people. And that's what's really truly sad with this capitalistic country that we live in, right? And so it shows that he is going out on a bad note. His whole tenure has been a bad note. And I think I saw somebody, a journalist say, like, we don't need a nice guy. And this is not even considered being a nice guy. Like, you're not a nice guy. If you're doing stuff like this, if you're making these types of irresponsible decisions and you're not listening to the people, you're not a nice guy either. You're irresponsible and goodbye. Don't let the door hit you when you leave to go to Luxembourg. Let me rephrase that. Sorry.
Nate, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just, Barrett's like, I don't know. I'm just ready for people really to get organized to push back on all this stuff that we're laying out here. I really appreciate the work that y'all did to compile this information. That's really helpful for people to see and to know and to kind of get a leg up on what's coming down the pipe so we can actually have some groundwork to understand how we need to fight going forward. But yeah, Barrett, hopefully some journalist or some city historian does a real close thing that shows in my opinion, Black, wealth or whatever decline in his tenure and put that out there. And so people can really see that. But also I think, we need to look at how we move forward and how we do things and really, really fight for what we need and what we want. So that's all I got on that.
Yeah. Again, we don't really this was not fun for us to sit down and compile this data and have this conversation. And I don't think any of us want the city to fail. But what we're trying to lay forth is that, the decisions we are making are bankrupting and failing our city. And the ways in which the conversations are being had and probably will continue to be had are not helpful discussions. Next year's budget, the 2023 budget, there are going to be tough decisions that are going to have to be made, no matter who the mayor is. And there are going to be services that are going to be cut, period. And it's going to lead more than likely into the same chicken or egg scenario where we're like, well, crime's going up, so we need to be spending more on police. When in reality, we can also say services are going down as crime is going up, but we don't. And so we lay out this report, which we're again, super excited and super glad to try to push this conversation in a public way. We lay out this report again, just to say that this is coming, this is down the road, this is coming. Our people deserve so much better, so much better. We deserve to live in a city where libraries are adequately funded, public health is adequately funded, but also a city where we're imagining and building new programs to meet people's material needs. And it's going to take us organizing and showing up. This quote says, "We are ready to fight because we're worth fighting for," right? We're going to have these conversations because we believe we are worth fighting for. So we have an opportunity on Monday to speak directly to the mayor. And I think there'll be some potential mayors in the room as well. At the joint public hearing, we can drop the link so folks can register. If you've been moved, if you believe in Milwaukee, a thriving Milwaukee is a Milwaukee where we have libraries, a Milwaukee where our snow is getting shoveled and we can drive in the winter, a Milwaukee where people's trash is getting picked up more consistently, join us on Monday night. Let the mayor and let the common council know that that this ain't it, and we deserve so much better. Let them know that the way to building thriving community is not through more police funding. Instead, it's through taking money away from police Instead, it's from building up new programs. Instead, it's making investment to keep people in their houses. Those are the things that we're fighting for. And we hope this report, in highlighting like the decisions, like, right, that these things don't happen in vacuum. You don't get more police in a vacuum. For each new police we get, that's something that's being taken away. And that's like, that's the reality. That's like capitalism, right? And so now is a chance, Monday is a chance for us to take our demands to the people who are making decisions and let them know, like, this is our vision forward. So thank you so much, Sarah, Nate, and Marquesa for joining me. Thank you, everybody listening. Thank you for folks who are gonna read the report. We wanna be in conversation. Like, this report is like, we don't do research to like say we publish some stuff. We do it to like help advance the conversation. And so hopefully this is like helping people to think about like the decisions that are upcoming and think about like, right, like although the numbers look tough, there's always another way. We can imagine new things. What does it mean to build a care budget? What does it mean to take care of each other? What does it mean to think about ways to meet people's needs in this moment? So thank you everybody for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of the Friday. It's October 1st. We were talking at the top, it's like 80 degrees. So maybe like take a walk around the block. I don't know, enjoy it. Sip a sparkling water on your front porch maybe. Just enjoy it and have a wonderful day. Thank you and bye everybody. All right.